Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Today is Monday, August 10th, 2026, and we are here in the Commissioners' Conference Room at the Administrative Services Building in Fort Collins for a work session for the Larimer County Board of County Commissioners. I am Chair Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shad McNally, and I welcome you and thank you for joining us today. Today we have a work session regarding the Human and Economic Health Service area, and we have several guests. We have some extension and some workforce and some human services development updates. I'm joined at the conference table by Commissioner Kristen Stevens and Commissioner John Kafalis. We also have our county manager, Lorenda Volker, who is in the room, and we also have our assistant county manager, who's off to the side, keeping an eye on all of us. I have to tease her because she's got a good viewpoint there, Lori Cadridge. So again, we have a work session today, and this is for the Health and Economic Health Service area. And I will now turn this over, I'm assuming, to our extension, I forgot your title, Carrie Weiner. I just let you go ahead and introduce yourself. And you have a wonderful, fantastic team joining you today. So I'm going to turn this over to you and let you proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good to be here. Carrie Weiner, Larimer County Extension Director. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about our work responding to the drought that we're in. We're working in a number of different ways and areas that we thought would be good to highlight for you all, just to help your understanding of how we're helping the community navigate this issue. As you know, the eastern half of Larimer County is in extreme drought. The western half is in severe drought. And Extension's mission is to empower individuals to address important and emerging community issues using dynamic, science-based information and resources. And so drought is one of those emerging issues. And we are responding in dynamic ways, always rooted in science, research-based information. And so we're going to highlight a few different ways that we're working with residents, landowners, and ag producers for you today. So with me are Dr. Allison O'Connor. She's our horticulture specialist. She's going to be talking about how she's promoting best management practices in landscapes and lawns and gardens with respect to the drought. Jenna Brager is our natural resources coordinator. She's working closely with small acreage landowners and others on the conservation of natural resources, including water. And then Maggie Switzer, you all know from our farmers market. She's our farmers market and food systems coordinator, and she's going to be talking about our work with agricultural producers in the community with a focus on those who sell at the farmers market. So with that, I'll turn it over to Allison.
Thank you, Carrie, and good morning, everybody. I'm Allison O'Connor. I'm the horticulture specialist here in Larimer County. I've been in my position this is year 21, which is very hard to believe, and I have never seen a year like it. So I know that we've gone through drought. That was in the early 2000s, was probably our last significant drought, although we've had some periods where we've experienced this. And so going into 2026, I had plans, which were then we took a T to focus more on drought management, which has always been a focus because water is a scarce resource. And when it comes to landscapes, there are absolutely ways that we can save water. We can be useful in using the water, and proper plant selection, using irrigation water efficiently, all of those things have always been a focus. This year in particular, I like to coin it the year of the lawn. So whether we are trying to keep our lawns green, we are facing water restrictions. They are mandatory, or they're optional at this point. They may turn mandatory depending on what snowpack looks like and if we do get some of the monsoon rains that we have been promised. But lawns, I have answered personally hundreds of emails on all sorts of things, whether it's looking to downsize the lawn, whether it's looking to operate your irrigation system in a more efficient manner, addressing disease management, addressing rabbits, which seem to be very prevalent this year. So both on the homeowner side and then also with homeowner associations. I have gone out on multiple site visits where homeowner associations are just getting really burdened with the increase in water costs, and they are looking to be a lot more efficient with their water use. Other things that we have done in order to kind of address this, we've hosted a couple of events. Back in April, we had the Live in the NOCO with Aaron O'Toole. That was held on campus, and there were 4 of us who each had a topic area that we talked about. Those sessions were then recorded and then put on KUNC. Later. It was a really fun event. There was about 250 people there. It was a sold-out show, and it was really great. So my topic was lawns. Talked all about the grass, defended grass because it does serve a purpose. And then we also had a second event that was much smaller called Plants That Thrive. That was held at the Trial Gardens in June, and we basically set up a Q&A booth with the Master Gardener volunteers to take people through a tour of the perennial trials, to talk about plants that are lower water use, those that are more xeric, some that are native, and options for people of how they can incorporate some of these lower water use plant materials into their landscape. Master gardeners and myself have been very busy doing multiple presentations, so I'd like to say that we've stretched from the north to the south to the east to the west throughout Larimer County, up to Red Feather, up to Estes Park, talking about various issues. This Friday at the Council Tree Library in Fort Collins, we have a presentation with Deb, who's going to be talking about low water use plants. So the topic is still very popular. We're still trying to get as much information out as possible. We have multiple Q&A booths at farmers markets throughout the county as well. Another thing that I'm very involved in are regional and statewide teams with Extension addressing some of our more prevalent disease and insect issues that we're also seeing in the urban forest, whether that's emerald ash borer or mountain pine beetle that has resurged, Japanese beetle, some other drought-related issues like cytospora. And so we're working and we have the resources to really address some of those issues as well. So a lot of my focus is working one-on-one with individuals, but also giving out group information and just being readily available as we're able. And then just to wrap things up, something that's a little bit more fun and maybe not as dry as drought, are the Master Gardener vegetable trials. We are in our, I think, 7th year. We're up at Ardec North, and this year we're looking at cherry tomatoes and also zucchini. So we're looking at plants, and especially this is a great testimony to if we can grow vegetables in this dry climate, and we can. But on August 22nd at the Larimer County Farmers Market, we're going to have a tasting. So if you want to come out and taste some wonderful cherry tomatoes and then judge them based on flavor and how they feel in your mouth and all of those great things, you can stop by on the 22nd. But we publish that information and then release it as varieties that do well in northern Colorado.
Thank you for that information. And I found your description of cherry tomatoes very interesting. Yeah, I've been eating a lot of those this summer. Colleagues, or commissioners, do you have any questions or comments at this point? Commissioner Kafalis.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Alice and Dr. O'Connor. I have a couple of questions. First of all, does Extension provide an issues brief regarding drip line irrigation in backyard gardens? In other words, it's been so hot and dry, I've been watering a lot more. It's still a little bit unclear, depending on the rate at which the water's coming through, how long we should be watering. So I'm wondering if there's an extension brief, or perhaps you could comment on that, Allison.
That's a great question. And drip irrigation, it's a little nebulous, as you've alluded to. And so there are different ways you can install drip irrigation, and we do have publication information on there. We call them fact sheets. And so we do have information that I'm happy to share. It's a little tricky because you kind of need to measure your output, and it can be dependent on the emitter size that you have, your pressure, and things like that. But to keep it simple, we like to say that if you can keep the top 6 to 8 inches of the soil profile moist, that is going to be good for most vegetables, and then also a lot of your trees and shrubs and lawn. Not that you would use drip irrigation for the lawn, but
And keeping the top 6 to 8 inches moist in light of the temperatures that we've had and the lack of the apparent monsoon season that is supposed to be upon us, how often should we be doing that? Because it seems like almost every day you have to add some more water.
yeah, and it's just been extremely hot. So I'm going to give my best extension answer on it depends. It depends on your soil. One thing I would recommend is that you are using mulch in some way, shape, or form in the veg garden. Maybe that's grass clippings or chopped leaves. But a lot of times, if you can easily penetrate a screwdriver to a depth of 6 to 8 inches, a really long, skinny screwdriver, then you're kind of in the ballpark of where you need to go. If you keep it thoroughly moist, I would aim to water maybe 2 to 3 days a week. But then also monitor your plant health too.
Thank you. May I ask another question, please?
Yes, and I
Okay.
don't know how we are doing on time care. You need to just let us know. So.
My apologies. My intention was to let all of my
Okay.
colleagues talk and then to have questions at the end, but we're
Yeah.
happy to do
Yeah,
it however
that's
you
fine.
would like to.
Actually,
do
I
that.
can hold off.
Okay, that would
and-
be great. I just
But I
want
do have another question for Allison about
if you
rabbits.
can hold
and
that, that would be
pests.
great. Let's go ahead and proceed. I just want to make sure because we
Thank
had
you.
2 other departments as well. So thank you for that. That's why I wanted to ask. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name's Jenna Brager, and like Carrie said, I'm the Natural Resources Coordinator at our Extension Office, and I'll share with you a bit about how we're addressing drought from a natural resources perspective. So we offer site visits to rural landowners, and so far this year, we've had 30 site visits and consulted on more than 1,400 acres here in the county. Most of our site visits are addressing drought impacts at this time. That's kind of the major question that landowners are having. And what we're seeing is an uptick in noxious weeds, which is also leading to increased herbicide use. And during drought, herbicides can have unintended impacts. So plants and soils metabolize chemicals much more slowly during drought, and that can lead to herbicides injuring desirable non-target plants, and sometimes can have longer term carryover into the next crops. So we're also seeing that chemicals can turn into vapor and drift onto non-target plants. And landowners are having some herbicide damage on desirable non-target plants this year due to the drought. We're also seeing that weeds are adapting to drought conditions by growing thicker leaves and slowing their growth. Both of those things can make herbicides less effective and sometimes result in more herbicide applications. With the drought causing lower water levels in streams and rivers, there's also risk that herbicides that enter water supplies can become more concentrated and pose a threat to aquatic life. And we've also had a handful of landowners concerned about fish deaths in their ponds this year, which may be due to increased water temperature and algal growth. In addition to the uptick in noxious weeds, we're also seeing an increasing amount of bare and unprotected soil and drying out or lack of water retention in the soil, which can be tough to recover from. So during site visits, I am advising landowners in ways that achieve their property goals and incorporate best stewardship practices. Some of those things include organic weed management and herbicide use only as necessary, and we work really closely with Larimer County Weed District to ensure correct application of herbicides. I'm advising on seeding drought-tolerant grasses and native plants, particularly for folks who have bare and exposed soils. Rotational grazing to prevent overgrazing, particularly because overgrazing impacts can be exacerbated by drought, and then also simple low-tech methods to improve water retention in the soil. I'm also participating in regional groups like Allison that are working to address drought, and that includes the agricultural water group that Heidi Pruis convened to understand drought impacts and drought resilience tools. And then we have the Colorado Drought Advisors, and that's a collaboration of professionals who are working to improve access to technical resources for drought preparation and response among Colorado producers. And some of the partners in the Colorado Drought Advisors include CSU Extension, USDA, Colorado Ag Water Alliance, and several others. We are working with about 25 to 30 kind of subject matter experts in the county to create a Larimer County landowner guidebook. And this will include a wide array of topics relevant to rural landowners, many of them that we can tie to drought preparedness. Some of those topics include forest health, pasture management, emergency preparedness, stewardship of riparian areas, soil health, irrigation and water use, and wildlife interactions. Also working on our county's water master plan, particularly addressing Strategy 7, which is about protecting agricultural water. We're compiling a list of tools to potentially protect irrigated ag lands, and that list can help inform the county's role in addressing buy and dry. The tools so far include things like conservation easements, water sharing agreements, covenants, first right of refusal for purchase, legislation, and there are a handful of others as well. And we're looking at case studies, levels of effectiveness, longevity, cost, and other aspects of these tools. Last April, we hosted a workshop for ag producers called When in Drought, Smart Irrigation and Soil Management. And the workshop topics included drought planning, working with ditch companies, increasing soil moisture retention, and efficient irrigation methods. And we had about 50 attendees in person, online, and we had a field trip to Flores del Sol. And with that, thank you for your time, and I'll turn it over to Maggie.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And I do have questions for you after a little bit. Welcome, Maggie.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Maggie Switzer, and I'm the Farmers Market and Food Systems Coordinator for the Extension Office. So the name of the game this year in terms of programming has been being flexible and adaptable with our local producers. One of our big challenges this year was that Ela Family Farms, who is one of our longest running vendors at the farmers market, over 20 years, and their 5th generation organic fruit farm out on the western slope in Delta County, experienced a historic freeze of their crop. So because of the warm winter, all of their fruit trees, including their apples, started blooming early, and then they lost it to a historic late season freeze in late April. And because the trees had baby fruits on them, all the baby fruits perished. It was 500 acres of crop loss. And so that was a big deal, not just for our market, but other farmers markets across the state. They serve a lot of front range markets and just a lot of other wholesale and fruit distributors across the state. So that was a big loss, and for other Delta County growers as well. So that was one of the big things we had to be flexible on. So Ela does come to our market every 3rd week of the month, and they bring tomatoes and their kind of non-perishable applesauces and dried goods that they will have. And we're absolutely flexible with them. And so that was sort of a silver lining for us that they could come at all this year for the 3rd week of the month. And so I absolutely made the space for them. And we've also placed signage around the market alerting customers as to what happens. And they have a fundraiser on their website and their signage at the market encouraging customers to donate to their fundraiser to support their farm. So I think that's something that we've just tried to use the market as a kind of elevate the platforms and elevate the producers. Other ways we've done that is using our social media platforms to elevate producers that are going through other irrigation or water cost challenges this year, and just elevating their stories just to show consumers and customers at the farmers market that this is the year to support local, if any, because of the drought and also because of our warm winter and weather challenges our producers experienced. I had another local producer who's here in Larimer County, diversified vegetable producer, that missed our application window because they had a large windstorm in March, and then so weren't able to submit their application and application fee on time. And usually farmers markets are pretty strict on these things, but I'm very flexible, and I was like, don't worry about it. You're into the market. It's okay. And I think that's just the name of the game this year, is being flexible and adaptable. Something also related to the drought is just keeping ourselves cool at the market and just being very aware of the heat this year. This past weekend, for example, we had adjusted hours due to the heat from 8:30 a.m. to 12, and this was the first year we did that. And I think it was a success, and actually a lot of producers were very happy to have like a little break from the heat, because going until 1, it gets kind of hot from 12 to 1 on Saturday in the parking lot with little shade. So we've just been able to make adjustments, and we're very aware of the heat impacts at the markets. We've handed out cold water, electrolyte packets, just trying to do our best to make sure our vendors get through the market okay and, are healthy and safe during the markets. And I've encouraged them to check on each other and alert us if anyone's not feeling well. It's actually really helpful that we have the indoor space for the bathrooms, because we've encouraged people to go inside and cool down in the air conditioning if they need to, and just let staff and volunteers know if they're not feeling well. So the big thing I think we're aware of also is the heat in tandem with the drought. I've also just tried to pass on a lot of heat resources and drought resources and education to the producers. I took a heat illness training with CSU Extension some months ago, which I encourage other farmers market managers in the state to take as well, and have passed it on to the producers. Also to, for them to be aware of like people that work on their farm, volunteers. And actually something that's worked in our favor is the outbreak of cyclospora recently. We've seen an uptick in sales from our vegetable producers, and lettuce has been flying off the shelves at the farmers market. So I'm really glad to see the increase of supporting local, and I hope that stays. So in that way, cyclospora has been a good thing for the farmers market. Not a good thing for people that have suffered an outbreak, but it's been good for our local producers. I also serve on a statewide association, the Colorado Farmers Market Association, and I'm on our board. And so a lot of these, especially heat and drought resources, I've been able to pass on to other farmers market managers around the state and locally in northern Colorado to try to make sure that we're all making sure producers are supported, educated, and have the resources they need. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for that report and doing some proactive measures to keep everyone safe and comfortable. So Carrie, now on to you, and then we'll go to questions after that.
Perfect, thank you. I just wanted to call out some themes that you've heard today, and also highlight Maggie and Jenna both talked a little bit about our work with ag producers. Missing from today is Jess Callan. She was our ag specialist. She resigned in June, which was an unfortunate loss for us. But we are actively trying to hire for that position. CSU does have a hiring chill right now, and the Office of Engagement and Extension in particular is pausing hiring for at least the next 3 months. So I'm doing what I can to make sure that we're able to fill that gap as soon as possible, and that will add to our capacity to serve the ag community in particular. So I just wanted to note that. But going back to what our staff have done, hopefully you've heard about impacts that we're having at the residential level on the land, working with small acreage landowners as well as with farmers and ranchers. Hopefully you've heard that we're responsive. We get tons of calls and emails, but also that we're proactive in offering classes and resources. Hopefully you've heard, like as Allison pointed out, we're serving every community in Larimer County. We've been really purposeful about making sure we hit everyone from Estes to Red Feather, Berthoud, in between. And then hopefully you've also heard our partnerships and collaboration and capacity building. So we have over 120 master gardeners that are spread throughout the county that help us extend our capacity. We host events with other organizations. We've earned trusted relationships with the media, and KUNC allows us to get our message out quite widely. We're part of working groups that gather technical expertise together to serve the community. We collaborate with other county departments like Natural Resources. And then, of course, we're able to tap into resources at CSU. We have our extension colleagues across the state. We are all working to address the same sorts of issues. And then we can tap into campus faculty that have expertise as well. And so we're having real impacts on people's lives and land and livelihood in some cases as well. Hopefully that came through today, and we're happy to answer questions that you have.
Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate all of you in the presentation. I have a few questions, but I'll start with Commissioner Stevens first.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for being here, and I really do appreciate your ability to pivot and sort of concentrate on what's kind of top of mind for folks. Whether it's, kind of what's happening with my lawn to, what's happening with my fish in my pond to, kind of working with these farmers who are really experiencing severe drought and other kinds of issues as they move through the season. So that's remarkable, and I do think that that's a great thing about Extension. It sort of delivers what you want at the time you want it, right? I mean, it's and so I'm grateful for your work. With some of the stuff, like now I'm like, oh man, it's hard for me to squeeze in more meetings, but can people access some of the information online? So for example, when you're talking about plants that thrive, like I am very interested in that in my own backyard. Can we access some of those materials online too if we can't make it to one of the, I know you guys have a lot of papers and things like that, but is that available online?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. Yes. So we do a lot of webinars that are available online that are recorded that you can catch up with later. So we do a monthly series on the second Wednesday, which is this Wednesday. My colleague Alyssa will actually be talking about native plants that are best for your landscape. She's down in El Paso County, but still relevant information to Colorado. And a lot of those are available on the Plant Talk Colorado website, and then they're listed under webinars. So we have years worth of webinars that we have recorded that all have timely and important information that you can access if you just want to listen.
That's great, because I love that you're out in the community and doing that. But if I could watch that at 11:30 at night before I go to bed, that would be fantastic, and maybe for other people too, not just selfishly for me. And then can you talk, like some of the work, Carrie, you talked about some of the work that you're doing in other communities beyond like the Fort Collins area. Can you kind of briefly share maybe some of the stuff you've done, or are they experiencing different things in some of the mountain communities, or what does some of that work look like?
Would you like to talk about your?
Yeah, so site visits happen all over the county, and like I said, a lot of them are kind of drought impacts. People are having just like a huge amount of weeds because weeds are opportunists, and drought kind of creates the opportunity. It's our native plants struggle during drought and times of stress. That said, a lot of them are resilient to a certain amount of lack of water, but this has been a very rough year. And our recommendations vary based on where people are located. So as I'm recommending kind of seed mixes for forage and native grasses and native wildflowers, we're making sure to tailor those recommendations based on the region that somebody lives in and whether they're lower elevation or higher elevation. And then sourcing seeds and plants, also kind of tailoring that based on folks' locations. I've had you said the mountain, higher elevation. That's where I recently had a site visit where somebody was having trouble with their big pond, kind of lake size, and some fish population die-off, and also invasive aquatic plants in the water at their place too. I think lower down it's drier, and so that's where we're seeing more bare ground and kind of hydrophobic, dried out soils. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. Appreciate all your work. Thanks.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
I can wait till last, based on the time, if you want to go, Madam Chair.
Thank you. First, fantastic work, and great to hear that we have a lot of folks asking questions during this time of how they can help or save their lawns or get more drought-tolerant plants. I think we're all realizing we have to adapt and figure out how we get through this. Couple of questions. First to Maggie. We did have some of those trees go away, and I know we do story time, but I know we're trying to find a good place to do story time. Curious how that's working and looking going forward, just so, because I would hate for story time to be less kids because it's warm and it is harder. Maybe doing it much earlier. I'm not sure. So.
Yeah, we've noticed that too, and thank you for everyone that's come and done story time and has had this sweat out there in the middle lawn where we used to have trees and now there's not as many. I feel like in the future, maybe because this part of the year is so hot between July and August, and Allison and I also sweat the whole market. Um, maybe we have story time at the tail ends of the season when it's cooler, and then we do earlier in the morning. There's always kids at the market. I mean, we can always find an audience for story time, but I think. And we've kind of noticed of like, there's not shade out there like there used to be. So I think maybe in the future I coordinate story time to be a bit earlier in the season and later in the season at the tail ends. Yeah,
Fantastic.
before the heat.
Well, and I think there's a lot of kids in the market, and also we have a lot of dogs in the market. As you know, I love doing my dogs of the farmers market Instagram reel, which is so cute. But some of them come with pads on their feet, and I think we all have people to worry about and creatures. So,
Yes.
so thank you for that, and I'm glad to hear that because I hate for it to hate for kids to get not feeling so good or parents. So it's a special time at the market.
We have
Thank you.
signage for the dog paws as well,
Yeah.
which has been very popular, and we have it up every week, several signs around the market, and we've noticed a decline on dogs, and people are very appreciative of the dog paw signs. People thank us a lot for those.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's great
there's a
to hear.
cute dog on it with its
Yeah, I
paw
know, that's
up.
awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then for Jenna, you mentioned that you're out and you're doing forest health and riparian area work, and this is a lot of work that I'm doing in the Forest Health Council work. And so my question and curiosity, we just Colorado Forest Health Council, which I've been appointed to twice and chair the legislative committee, and I'm on the mountain pine beetle. Lots of work happening in these spaces. And there's a brand new 30-year plan that we adopted for the state of Colorado. I know the State Forest Service has moved kind of under your umbrella. I'm just wondering, how are we collaborating, partnering, so we're working in silos, and we have all these plans, and we're mountain pine beetle has some recommendations, and of course, along with Larimer County and our water plan, in our land use code and Department of Natural Resources, there are certain codes and things that we have that we're trying to protect those areas. And when I talked to the Bird Conservancy at the Poudre River Fest this weekend, talking about dark sky work up in Estes Valley, which is hopefully continuing forward this week after the town, I hope it has some serious consideration. But how do we coordinate all that so we're not like duplicating work or cross purposes maybe, and how do we help amplify and support each other? Because I think we all have the same goals and values and working that way, and I'm wondering how that looks and how the Department of Extension's doing that.
That's a great question. Yeah, and the main thing that we're doing right now is kind of playing a convener role on this county guidebook for rural landowners. And so essentially the forest health section of that guidebook is, we just had a meeting with a bunch of folks working in forestry and forest health last week, and it's like Larimer Conservation District, State Forest Service folks, Peaks to People, and a handful of others. And so we're just going, you guys have the expertise, and we just want to be kind of the conveners and the organizers to make sure that we gather and collate information that everybody gets to review and is in good shape to be distributing to landowners on behalf of all of these organizations. And then otherwise, we're working together and making referrals. Like, we're not necessarily the forestry and forest health experts in our office, but we're working closely so that we understand what the resources are and the right places to refer to people, to these different organizations.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So, you could, I don't know if you're interested, you could connect to the 30-year vision, because all of those things you just mentioned is in deep detail there. And that's the state 30-year vision for the forest, and it would be great if we're aligned with that.
Great.
Because I think that would be, especially with the connections to Larimer County to Forest Health Council and the Colorado State Forest Services on there, I think that would be really important. And then the next question I have about that with a rural landowners book. We have a land stewardship advisory board here at Larimer County who works especially with our land advisory for noxious weeds and working with large landowners, and we work with kind of that weed district and how that happens. And I would think that would be also an important connection, so that we can maybe make sure we're all using the same language and sharing. And I don't know, that might be a nice group to have you come present too about what you're doing, because that advisory board is advisory to the Board of County Commissioners. They meet quarterly, and Dalen Figs, the Natural Resources Director, I'm the liaison as a commissioner, but he's the staff liaison. I think that might be another one to just make sure we're kind of all on the same universe and trying to amplify each other's work. So I don't know if you've talked to them at all as well.
Is that the same group that's convened under Climate Smart Future Ready, that Land Stewardship Advisory Board? Okay.
It's a board under the county commissioners.
Okay.
And we might have some folks who are represented on there, maybe on your Climate Smart group, but it is a board advisory to the Board of County Commissioners, an official board for Larimer County. And they do make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on land stewardship and
Okay.
what things control. So I think that might be important just to make sure we're all connecting. So that would be important. So
That
thank you.
sounds good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
There is a land stewardship kind of group that convened under Climate Smart Future Ready, and those folks are who identified the need for the landowner guidebook. So
Yeah.
those are the folks who are involved.
Cool.
But
And
good to hear there's another board.
Yeah, it would be nice to close the loop and have you make sure the advisory board to the Board of County Commissioners kind of is aware of that. We could bring that, kind of close that loop. That would be great. And then with all of this, how are the Master Gardeners program, is that got a different focus and an area looking at, I just talked to one today, he's also on our Behavioral Health Policy Council. And how is that loop in to have more information about the drought? Because I'm sure Master Gardeners are answering a lot of questions there too.
They are. Thank you for asking. And Chad, I know Chad. The Master Gardeners, during their basic training, really get an emphasis on all aspects of gardening, but it's always rooted in what is local to Colorado. So drought is not a new thing. Water-wise landscaping is not a new thing. So that's a common theme throughout all of their training. This year, we have offered additional continuing education classes that specifically are related to drought, to plant management, to landscape management. And then also when I correspond with the Master Gardeners and send emails, I usually include some information or another, a webinar or another publication or something that can help them be in touch with the latest and the greatest information.
Fantastic. Okay, that's all the questions I have for today. Did you want to ask online, or do you want to answer your question real quick? I'm looking at the time for the others, but go ahead.
Well, here's running the show. I'm just curious, do you feel like we have time for me to ask my questions, or I can let them go?
We do. Yes, we do, Commissioner.
On the matter of, for Allison, on the matter of bunnies, are you seeing that there are more of them and their behavior is different than in the past? I offer the example of chewing through plastic drip lines, at least twice so far in the last couple of weeks. And also regarding insect pests, can you please comment on, well, certainly things like, there's a prevalence of Japanese beetles, and they're not only going after grape leaves, but they're going after everything from vegetables, green beans, morning glories, hibiscus, all sorts of things. And there's lots of them compared to last year. And even milkweed borers are out there. And so I wonder if you could comment on, is the heat and the dryness somehow contributing to more bugs? And also, what's up with these bunny rabbits? Are they genetically modified and to eat drip lines, or what?
I will try to keep it as brief as possible. Great questions. So for rabbits, we do have an increase in population. So with development and everything else, a lot of those rabbits are being moved into more urban areas. We also don't have the predators that we used to. So fox used to be a fairly large predator. They've had some disease issues that have happened. What's really interesting about rabbits is that in times of drought, they tend to hold and hold their urine because they don't want to dehydrate. And so then when they do urinate, it becomes like extra lethal in terms of affecting turf health, plant health, things like that. So there are more of them, to answer your question. The same thing with Japanese beetles. It's unfortunately a problem that's only going to get worse. So we will continue to see increase in populations. What I have noticed this year is because the Japanese beetles, when they lay their eggs, the eggs need water in order to complete their life cycle. If people weren't necessarily watering their lawns, we may have more egg death. We also may have smaller beetles or smaller grubs as a result. So this year could be maybe, hopefully beneficial in controlling Japanese beetles, but they're still going to increase. And the adults feed on over 200 ornamental plants in our landscapes, and most of them are the ones we love the most. So not great. I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. And thank you for the screwdriver tip.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that. I just have a couple more questions for Maggie and Jenna. Jenna, thank you. I mean, first of all, thanks to all of you doing comprehensive work throughout the county, complimentary and coordinating. With Jenna, with regard to the guidebook and all the other work you're doing on drought issues and water, focus area 7 on the water master plan and all that, I'm wondering, is your group or folks thinking 5 years from now and beyond? In other words, if we continue to see these trends of triple digit, I mean, if we ever come to a point where in Larimer County we have triple digit days throughout the summer, I mean, that's going to affect water. I mean, are you guys thinking about that? And in coordination with all the other forest health and ag folks?
Yeah, I think the group who identified the need for the landowner guidebook has been meeting for a handful of years before I got here. And so they've been kind of thinking over the long term together. And that's how the need for the guidebook was identified, was like long-term needs to support rural landowners in making good stewardship decisions and being good neighbors as well. And the other thing that folks have been talking about is that there can be kind of a 5-year turnover rate in terms of buying and selling of rural properties. And so folks are talking about how we need something like a resource that will help kind of go beyond these kind of like 5-year cycles. Yeah, so I think people are thinking long-term for sure and what's needed, and especially through the lens of drought resilience and temperature rise and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Thank you. My last question is for Maggie. Regarding the changing of when the farmers market occurs, how did we inform people? And is that just on certain days, or is that now how the farmers market is convening? And also related to that, you mentioned about water costs. I mean, I would think that if small-scale farmers and people who participate in the farmers market are having to use more water to, water their crops to bring to market, unless they have water rights, I don't know if they have municipal water, that must cost more money. Can you speak a little bit to how that's changed? And also, how do we inform the public if we're going to change the times of the market? Thank you kindly. That's all I have.
So firstly, on the times, this was the first Saturday we have done that in years, ever, where we shifted the times to be 8:30 to noon instead of 9 to 1. And we're thinking that it's not going to be permanent. So next week we're back to normal 9 to 1, and continuing weekends from that is 9 to 1. And we're thinking that, and we decided to make that decision because we saw that the predicted temperature was going to be over 100 degrees. And that was the first time we had seen that with the market. We've always been, upper 90s is our upper, hottest days. So we're thinking that for next year, that will be our policy written in our rules and regulations, that's our adjusted heat hours over 100 degrees of 8:30 to noon being adjusted heat hours. And that could be pretty much going forward. In terms of communication, we posted on our social media, and as well as informing the vendors very thoroughly, which is the biggest thing, is making sure they show up on time at the market. 8:30 has always been sort of like a soft opening. Customer-wise, a lot of customers show up very early to get in line. And so it wasn't a huge, besides posting on our social medias, a lot of people already show up quite early to the market anyway. And then noon, we do hit a bit of a lull in customers. So we'll continue to monitor. We keep meticulous data on attendance per hour. But going forward, we'll still be 9 to 1 for the rest of the season. And then that might be our heat policy for 2027.
On the water cost issue,
So the water cost issue is interesting. I think, so Martha Solins with CSU Extension has great data on price reporting each year with farmers markets, and this helps farmers kind of know where to price their products. And so I'm interested to see this year's data on farmers market prices and if they have increased, because I don't think we pay as much attention year to year or like meticulous attention on prices of certain items, but she has price reporters that are students that go out and collect data from the farmers markets, and then it's posted year to year online, and you can track the price increases. So it could be that prices have slightly shifted, but mostly we've elevated farmers that have, had a loss of ditch water. I know a lot of farmers do use a lot of ditch water rights on our social media, kind of elevate those stories for them and how they will have to begin the shift to municipal water irrigation, and that will perhaps increase substantially their costs and then maybe their cost of their products. But I'm curious to also see how that will go. I don't know of any that have made the shift yet.
thank you for your informed response. And
The
Carrie,
one-
that might be a good topic for an Ag Advisory Board meeting.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And the one thing I was going to add too is I was talking with a staff member from Poudre Valley Community Farms at the farmers market on Saturday. She mentioned they had to do a fundraiser to purchase some additional water shares for the farmers they have at Flores del Sol. It's like 8 different kind of more new and beginning farmers that all farm out of there. And so that was a real impact because they did need to acquire some more water this year.
Okay, well, thank you all. Fantastic information. Thank you for the work that you're doing and appreciate the partnership and collaboration as you this is important work, and obviously we know how much people love the market and the programs that we have, and glad that we're doing a land stewardship thing. I think it'd be great to make sure the advisory, the advisory board is aware of all that. I think that'd be great to understand. So thank you all. We're going to get our next team up, and we wish you all a much cooler next few farmers markets. And thanks for the work. Appreciate you all being here today. So yeah, have a wonderful week, and please stay cool. So now we'll bring up our Workforce Colorado, our Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act local plan update with Director Mark Johnson, who's our Director of Economic and Workforce Development, and he brought Marcy Kasner with him today, Associate Director from Economic and Workforce Development. Welcome to you both. Have a great day, Carrie.
Look at that. Technology's working. No, we're not going to do that. That's right. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, county manager, assistant county manager, who are all in the room, and of course, our guests who are online. My name's Mark Johnston, and I have the pleasure of serving as Larimer County's Economic and Workforce Development Director. And to my left here is
Marcy Kasner, Associate Director of Workforce Development, in Economic and Workforce Development.
Yeah. So today our goal is briefing, high-level overview of what we call the annual Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act plan. It's currently in draft form, and I'll provide some context through my slide deck about that here momentarily. Kind of dialing in a little bit more. What the public can expect today is an agenda where I give a little context around what is WIOA. I think that's always important to level set. How that comes alive here in Larimer County and across the state of Colorado. Little history. What the plan is, want to illustrate the timeline that we're working with here. And then we have a brief set of themes, 6 themes. We're also in the process of creating what I would call some sort of executive summary, because frankly, this document's 130 plus pages. And we're working to scale that down to a 8-page summary for the 3 of you, for, of course, the community. So let's take it away. All right. So the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, for our guests online, signed into law in 2014. It was the most recent update to the nation's core federally funded workforce training programs. And prior to that, 1998, we were under a little bit of a different law, and I'll outline that momentarily. WIOA requires a local workforce development board to lead workforce and development activities, and of course that wraps up through our Board of County Commissioners. And WIOA, simply put, is designed to help connect employers, obtain the skilled workers that they need to compete in a local, national, frankly, global economy. And then to help those job seekers access employment, education, training, supportive services, all to navigate this highly complex labor market here across the country. It also, frankly, created common core measures across some different federal programs. So it's always nice to be evaluated on the same thing, same language. Briefly, this system was birthed in 1933 as part of the New Deal. It's almost 93 years. That really, at that moment, was about connecting veterans with employers. That's the history. It still is an undercurrent through everything that we do. And then you can see on the slide deck 5 other laws that went into effect starting in 1962. And that really, frankly, was when we started seeing deeper talent investments, less labor exchange, kind of larger kind of job searching tool, more individualized, customized work. Here in Colorado, we operate under 10 workforce regions, Larimer County being one of those. You can see by the map, 8 of those are really centralized on the Front Range here in Colorado. Larimer, Weld County, Boulder County, Denver, Pikes Peak, Tri-County, Weld County. You can see on the western slope, Mesa County has their own workforce region. And then all of the blue there really is under what the state calls Rural Alliance. We have been rebranded within the last 12 to 18 months as Workforce Colorado, really in an effort to create a common front door for businesses, job seekers across Colorado who are moving, who might be doing business across multiple different regions. And then why does this plan matter? Workforce development certainly has evolved over those 90 plus years to different changing economic conditions, technology advancements, employer needs. These plans, I think our team frankly feels like it's a little bit of a rewind. Let's give context on what we've been doing, and it's also a bit of a fast forward, a bit of a strategic plan of sorts about what we intend to do moving forward.
Can I pause you just there real quick? Back to the map of the 10 workforce regions.
You bet.
The Rural Alliance. That's a very expensive area, and I'm just curious if you could, just because I just wanted to ask it kind of closer to that map than down the road. I have to go back, but if you don't mind, I'm just curious how that vast, from almost north to south, east to west, almost the entire region of Colorado. I mean, it's just, there's more of it than the less. And I'm wondering, is there more than one person helping with that? And what does that look like? Because rural healthcare, rural behavioral health, rural, it's all being strained right now, and I'm curious about that.
Excellent. This gives me a great opportunity to delineate the 9 of the 10 workforce regions are locally administered. The 10th, which is the Rural Alliance, is state administered through the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. I wouldn't know off the top of my head how many physical locations there are in the Rural Alliance, but I know for a fact over 50 across Colorado as a totality. I would estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40 of those rural. It is centralized under a single point director, but there are field staff across Colorado, and of course, they've got quite a digital footprint as well.
Thank you. And I apologize for
Oh, yeah, you
pausing,
bet.
but I just thought that, to me, just, because Jackson's right close, and it is impacting our neighbors, and I'm just curious about that. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. So that purpose of the plan, I kind of alluded to a little bit when I used that rewind, fast forward, but really sets our local workforce strategy. The plan establishes how we here in Larimer County will organize and deliver work. It also translates labor market conditions into how that comes alive. It helps us define and really creates a bit of a roadmap on how we utilize these investments. How do they come alive in the field? It does strengthen state and regional alignment. We do quite a bit of work with our Weld County friends just to the east, but also under this, we've always done statewide coordination across those 10 regions. And frankly, I feel like we're a model on how to do that and how to do that well. But it's becoming more and more important in a fragmented environment of talent. There's over 125 unique talent initiatives coming out of the state of Colorado alone. To have a common front door where people in our community can come and be navigated for services. And then it creates some accountability for us. In this particular plan, you would see in particular the 18 common measures. This is a dashboard that evaluates how these 10 regions perform. So to give you a quick overview, this is where we sit on the local plan timeline. And it may actually be best to start from the bottom because that's what we're running towards is this acronym on the screen, CWDC, stands for the Colorado Workforce Development Council. I like to just think of that as the state's workforce board in many ways. Our plan is ultimately due to the council on that day. You will see right before that, Marcy Kasner, because I'll be out of pocket, will come back to the three of you in an admin matters and provide an update on public comment. So I'm going to illustrate a little bit of that here. So just those two important deadlines are driving our timeline. And then we are here today at point 3, which is a brief update on in our HEH work session to make sure it's on the radar of everyone, because we will be moving the plan to the three of you, to our county manager, into a public comment window. Our board meetings, workforce development board meetings, we'll have a special session to learn about it, review it, give comment as well. And you can see how that charts through this particular timeline. Okay. Because this plan's 130 plus pages, Marcy came to me and said, gosh, we got to tease this down somehow. And it was Marcy's idea to frankly come up with these themes. And then furthermore, Amanda thought, let's build an executive summary. Something, we don't quite have that completed, but a 5, 6, 7, 8 page document that's just much easier to digest. But you can see these are what we've pulled out of this year's plan as our 6 core themes. And I'll speak to them here off of the screen. We do have a slide for each of these that drills into a handful of examples. We could get into the weeds pretty quick, but I think sometimes the weeds are where frankly our the public are really interested in learning how it might impact them. So data-driven workforce strategy. I think a theme in here is we utilize data to inform our investments, but we also need to be business confirmed. It's one thing to follow the data. It's another thing to make sure that that's accurate in real experience here in Larimer County. High emphasis in the plan this year on both regional and state workforce alignment. Commissioner Cafalis joined me, if I may, feels like about 2 months ago, to launch the House Bill 261317. And that could be its own work session, but this is really the governor's vision on reorganizing Colorado's talent development and higher education systems into a unified, reimagined system to in an effort, reduce the chatter, reduce the fragmentation. And Commissioner and I were down along with our Workforce Development Board Chair, Mark Christensen, to help kick that off a handful months ago. And again, Commissioner Cafalis is our current Workforce Board liaison. So regional collaboration, state workforce alignment comes through this plan. Employer-led talent development. I continue to talk to our team and that employers are the keystone in talent development. We will find talent. We will. We have strength of partnerships across nonprofits, public entities. It is making sure that employers who are employing help drive our talent development strategies. They're at the table with our K-12 partners, with our community college, with private vendors, helping to talk about what's the curriculum needs. Because we are more of a facilitator of that work. We're not doing the direct training. We work with the partners to deliver on that. Fourth, bottom left, expanding workforce participation and economic mobility. That is a theme. It's always a theme through our Workforce Colorado and our department work. How do we unlock opportunities? How do we remove barriers from job seekers? Frankly, in a really interesting time where Colorado's seeing labor participation rate reductions. As a matter of fact, for the last 3 to 4 months of data put out by Colorado's statistics department, we have seen labor participation rates decline. Probably for a myriad of reasons, but that becomes a worry for businesses. It becomes a worry for all of us. And then the fifth theme, preparing for the future economy. I like to think of that as both preparing our staff to deliver on that, but also preparing businesses and job seekers when we think of things like artificial intelligence and technology advancement and digital literacy, et cetera. Last but certainly not least, it's frankly one of the core pillars of what, again, we've always done, but it's customer-centered design, human-centered design, workforce systems. So how do we maintain that approach, frankly, in a highly compliance-driven environment that sometimes I think is there for good intentions, but frankly, it just can get in the way. So Marcy, would you add anything else to these themes as you've spent time?
I guess along with all of those themes and the opportunities, there are some challenges that we have because of some changes in technology. And so we're hard at work trying to figure out, AI always comes up. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out along the way is what are those occupations out there that are going to be least impacted? But when you think of what Mark said is we're facilitating training, we've got a challenge with a new, what they call eligible training provider list, which actually reduces, currently this year, will actually reduce the number of approved training vendors. So then that reduction then creates an opportunity to think outside the box about how do we do things a little differently than we've done before. And one of the things that has come up is, again, when you go back to the industry-driven occupations that are needed, then do we market to people who have an interest in that rather than kind of waiting for people to come in? We'll still have that open door to anybody who wants to come in and is eligible for that training. Those might be one-offs, but do we do cohort trainings more in industries that really need some help, and then market to those people who have that interest? So those are some of the things that come to mind as I think about all of those.
Yeah, that's great context. That eligible training provider list is going to be a challenge. It is for us to invest tuition, books, fees, resources that this act provides on behalf of job seekers. It's almost like a Pell Grant in some ways. It's a scholarship opportunity. Those training vendors are required to be on this eligible list. And this list really, the national goal is it's a consumer report card of sorts, so that a person coming into our system can view a list of vendors and their outcomes. Employment outcomes, wage outcomes, completion rate outcomes. And it is, our experience in the field is that it is absolutely the right vision. And then it has become difficult for some training vendors to do that, because it's not just about following the journey of the WIOA sponsored, it's also the non-WIOA. So now we're talking about large, maybe I would use a private truck driver example. 15% of the cohort in a given year may be WIOA sponsored. They're required to report on the other 85% as well. And that requires some social security number obtainment so that it can cross-reference into an unemployment insurance database, which is tracking those set outcomes. So no doubt we've got some challenges, but I love Marcy's point, because that challenge also gives us an opportunity to work with businesses in a different kind of training investment. So we're still investing, we're still giving opportunity, and maybe even we have employers hiring day one, rather than waiting for the classroom training to end. So good point. I didn't intend to do too deep of a dive, but we have now 6 slides that coincide with those themes. Data-driven workforce strategy. Handful of things here I might articulate. Our City of Fort Collins partners, our Fort Collins Chamber partners, our Weld County Greeley Chamber partners came together, helped resource a Northern Colorado labor market dashboard. It's on our website. No cost to use. Businesses can access that and seek the most recent trends around what the labor market is doing here in Northern Colorado. We also work with sector partnerships. 6 of them are alive. These partnerships are essentially industry commonality, industry-driven, and then public partners are in the room listening to challenges and trying to help create solutions to those said challenges. The regional collaboration and workforce system alignment work, I think a number of noteworthy things here, but we have had a longstanding memorandum of understanding with our WELD Workforce Development Board. As a matter of fact, we have one of our 2 joint meetings on Wednesday, where we will bring these boards together to do some strategic planning around Northern Colorado, not just the individual counties. Spoke about the unified branding of Workforce Colorado, and I very briefly mentioned House Bill 261317, the reimagination of the state system.
If I might pause you just.
Yeah, you bet.
There's our hands. When you talk about the regional workforce development boards and MOU, we have Cheyenne right there. And
Yep.
we have some folks probably traveling to work down here or vice versa. what does that look like? I know there's two different states, two different processes,
Yep.
but that is still folks who are probably commuting or maybe
Yep.
finding, living up there and
Yep.
coming. And I know that because I think we have some Larimer staff that were or have been doing that. And I'm wondering about what does that look like to make sure we have
Yep.
at least communication?
Yep. As a matter of fact, I support staff who drive every day from Wyoming down to 200 West Oak here. Absolutely. Couple of quick things come to mind for me. In our business and economic development team, one of our superpowers is helping to convene these sector partnerships. So our staff have gone up in partnership with Wyoming partners and helped to rally businesses together to determine if they'd like to learn the model, implement the model. And then I'd say from a talent development standpoint, we are in the last leg of our lap on working with our local Innisphere Ventures here in Fort Collins. And I reference that because Innisphere is the recipient of a large National Science Foundation grant, which is all about Wyoming and Colorado. So we are, again, close to signing an agreement where we would receive some resources to then advance the work of that climate engine happening. And the work really is, for us, will be non-four-year degree, focusing in 4 distinct areas, and think of it as the 4 elements: water, wind, earth, and fire. So, that's how I've been able to wrap my head around it. And if we can help advance technology, to businesses, but also upskill job seekers in those areas, we're going to inevitably draw some added partnerships with State of Wyoming.
Thank you.
Could I add a couple more
Yeah,
things?
Sure.
So every year, two times, spring and fall, we have large job fairs, and that is Southern Wyoming employers as well. We had a really, I think, a great showing, the last one we did. We'll have another one again in the fall. And also, we pay for a data dashboard, let's say, on our website that anybody can access. If you're a job seeker looking for a job, what it does is a 50-mile radius that we pay for around this area code, 80521, and so goes clearly up into Cheyenne. And so any employers there that have active job postings, they show up for anyone in that radius. So
That's very interesting. Thank you. I appreciate you entertaining my question.
Yeah, you
Alex,
bet.
do you have any questions? Okay, let's move on.
Keep moving here. So the employer-led talent development theme, I could spend 20 minutes here. But I would say a handful of things I think are important. Skills-based hiring. Our teams are out working with employers to should the employer choose, how do they adapt a more skills-based hiring approach rather than a certificate degree only approach. People have real-world experiences. Sometimes they are left in the margins if they haven't obtained that paper. There are occupations where skills-based hiring could be more alive and well. I would also say regional tactical plans. These are 3 sector partnerships are working to advance talent solutions in healthcare, manufacturing, and construction skilled trade. And then last but not least, we're going to get this done, Marcy, aren't we?
Yes.
But we continue to talk about employer design talent cohorts. So we do a fantastic job, and you'll see it in Select. 25 people in one intervention to work immediately, rather than the 1v1. And you could imagine the scale of opportunity that we have there, especially if we can frankly unlock a secondary fund to complement this compliance-heavy Title I fund. So some really neat stuff. Be happy to talk about an example Marcy has, if that's a question here towards the end. How do we help expand workforce participation and economic mobility? You can see here, we are deeply invested in how do we help as a department stand up work that is going to be unfolding in the 1B childcare space. There is a slant of resources focused on training. We'll work with Heather O'Hare in our Human Services Department and one of the leaders of that, Christina Taylor, to see how economic and workforce can align with that. And then furthermore, the HR1 support. It is on our mind. We have not seen the surge yet. It's steady, but we believe it's coming. And for those guests online, these are some changes to federal law on how participants will continue to access Medicaid, food stamps, temporary assistance to needy families, and how do we, with our partner Heather and others, frankly, across the community, because this will be a community mobilization event, be ready. So expanding economic mobility, wrapping up two more things, preparing for the future economy, mentioned that with the National Science Foundation climate work. What is our role around workforce readiness when it comes to digital literacy and AI literacy, both for employers, frankly, and for job seekers. So we've got some really great digital work happening upstairs on the 5th floor. And then last but not least, I've kind of mentioned this under the human-centered point, but we deliver services across the county. We do it in a hybrid model. We are centralized here in downtown Fort Collins, but we, upon request, also go out into the community. We're at libraries. We have multilingual staff, always looking at continuously trying to improve our footprint. So that is our 6 themes. That is a sneak peek, frankly, the first public peek at the WIOA local plan. We've got a 30-plus day window. We'd love your feedback today, certainly, and certainly during public comment. What questions can we answer?
Mark and Marcy, just well done. Fantastic. I like how this progressed and how you kind of broke this up, and appreciate all the digital or the hard copies with the different kind of logos or boxes. That was really helpful. Great presentation. We'll see if the other commissioners have questions. Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, and thanks for all the work that you're doing in this space. It seems like your work is becoming more complicated between some of the new initiatives that are coming out, and so I appreciate you kind of staying up with, all the things that you have to do. Can you talk a little bit about funding? How long is WIOA program funded with the federal government? And I know that there's like a continuing resolution that's coming out too. And so what's your thoughts on kind of how funding's going to continue in this program?
You read my mind. First was continuing resolution, which really is just the current law continues to advance. We have seen different committees in both the federal Senate and the federal House mark up reauthorization ideas. Some of them as local administrator of this worry me significantly. Some of them continue to make investments. What I would say is here in Colorado, we actually pleasantly saw a little bit of a plus for our current funding year, which is a July 1, 26 through June 30. And where did we see that? We saw it in our deeper case management services for adults with barriers and in our disconnected youth programs. Where we saw reductions was our laid off worker programs. And frankly, it was flat in our broader labor exchange, connecting businesses to talent. And we know flat essentially is a bit of a reduction. It has been a conversation for a handful of years, and I just don't know where Congress will fall in terms of the motivation to get it over the line.
Well, thank you, and just let us know how we can help you advocate in that space. So we're happy to make those phone calls or do those letters that can support, programs that you see where there's need. I mean, I love a focus on people with deeper barriers and that kind of stuff, and youth, but I don't think we want to lose dollars in any of these spaces at this point, especially with the HR1 changes. I think that, I hope that Congress is realizing that when you change all that to HR1, that these dollars are needed more than ever, because while you guys haven't seen the surge, I'm sure you will see a surge. Yep. Because if people want to qualify for some of those benefits, they're going to have to at least work part-time, it sounds like. So, and there again, if we're seeing people sort of leave the workforce, I mean, there may be a silver lining to some of this, and that is that maybe some people come back in the workforce that we could really use, and that employers could really use. So, but at the same time, losing dollars in an environment where people really need the help getting into employment is so. Just be in touch about that. But this is great work, and look forward to, thank you for thinking of us when you're thinking of the executive summary, because, well, I appreciate all the work, like sometimes, at least initially, that's what we can get to, so.
You bet.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I agree, the executive summary, great summary, great idea. Commissioner Kafalis.
Thank you. Again, thanks for your presentation, and I look forward to our meeting on Wednesday morning, a joint meeting of our Weld County and Larimer County Workforce Development Boards. Please express our appreciation to Amanda for suggesting the idea of a 6+ page executive summary versus reading a 100+ page WEOA plan update. And also, I think the way you guys did the themes is a really good thing. Extracting the themes and then providing some details about each one. Question I have is, why are we seeing in Colorado and nationally a decline in labor participation? I'm sure there are multiple reasons. Yep. And what are the implications for that? In other words, people that don't participate in the labor force, how do they put food on the table?
Yep, it's a good question. You've always got good ones. All of you do. So here's a few reasons that come to mind. We have an aging population that is retiring. We are, I know you've heard this, we have less babies. We have migration challenges, and I would say both domestically. So these are the people who are already living in other states moving to Colorado. Primarily cost of living challenges, but we also have some interruption in international migration as well. Those, I think, probably, Commissioner, would be some of the top ones right out of the gate. I don't know if, I wouldn't say the AI wave has hit us like some would think, and they've eliminated 20% of those positions. I don't think that yet. But I think that some technology advancement and people without those skills could be having a hard time entering as well.
So is there any data that shows how people who choose to not participate in the labor force, how they're putting food on the table?
I don't have that in front of me, but I could.
I'm just curious, and maybe it's anecdotal. I'm sure they're either relying on family members or
family members,
government assistance
coming
programs,
together,
perhaps.
Assistance programs.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
Absolutely. Moving possibly out of the area. You bet.
So, in the interest of time, there's one other presentation, but I just wanted to Sorry, Commissioner, your mic is off. In the interest of time, thank you. Thank you, Cassidy. I'll just maybe ask some more questions later because we have one more presentation today. Yep. But I wanted to just say well done. Great partnerships, collaboration, and really forward thinking on this plan to make sure that it's meeting the requirements, but also that it's user-friendly for everybody who needs to look and understand it. So you two are a dynamic duo. What a great team. Please give our gratitude to your whole team and everyone involved.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, and I might have a question or two later, but I want to just honor the time because we have one more presentation. It's really great to start off the week with both of you. Thank you.
Good, thank you so much.
Thank you. And have a great week and day. So we're supposed to have a Human Services Department update from Heather O'Hare, from Director of Human Services, but I see our Assistant County Manager, Lori Cradridge, is here. So welcome, Lori.
Yes, I'm sorry I'm subbing for Heather today. I'm not quite as articulate as she is on this topic. We held a placeholder on the agenda in case we were able to resolve some concerns that we had for the scheduled work session. So you might remember we were going to do an update on the 1B tax. And our teams are right now both Christina Taylor's team, who we have a contract with Kids Thrive to administer programs, and our team are working on ways to amend what we had going on so far this year. And so what we decided to do at the end of last week is wait until both teams are ready to move forward so that you're not getting that halfway presentation. Rather, you're getting the final presentation, and then you guys can provide direction on that. I am happy to report that it looks like we have some really good options, even though some of the things that Kids Thrive thought could get done sooner are not able to get done, largely due to technology and trying to get systems in place to be able to administer millions of dollars that'll be going out into the community. So right now, they're looking for alternatives to get money out in a different way. And both teams look like there's some good possibilities for that going forward. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Heather is going to be here on Wednesday to talk about human services. And so any of those questions, we should be able to get answers to on Wednesday.
Great. And before I let others, if they have any questions, I'm going to just make sure we give time for Lorenda to add on to this presentation from the first two and from Mark and Marcy, and then answer anything you want to add on to what Lori just shared, and then we'll see if the other commissioners have questions. Thank you, Lorenda.
Sure, just very briefly, I think great conversations are happening. Frankly, the timeline for Northern Colorado Kids Thrive was really hopeful. Not surprising that it's taking a little longer to get some contracts in place and some of the baseline technology implemented so that everything can build on that. So I think we'll hear more from Heather. We'll hear more about HR1 and the impacts on human services on Wednesday as well at that Board of Social Services work session.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for either Lori or Lorenda about what they just shared? Commissioner Kafalis.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions. Just want to say thank you for your role in helping to bring folks together to come up with what sound like some constructive and positive options moving forward. Thank you.
I will also say that to you and Lorenda both, because you both had a lot of hands-on with this to help get us so we can help everyone succeed here, and I appreciate both of you and the work that you've done the last few weeks. So with that, it doesn't seem like we have any further questions or concerns, so at 11:28, we are adjourned. Thank you for joining us today. Have a marvelous week. Thank you.